I hereby call the adjourned regular City Council meeting of May 29th, 2020 to order. For those who are able and would care to join us, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, can we get the roll call?
Councilmember Garner.
Present.
Councilmember Middleton.
Present.
Councilmember Woods.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Holstedge.
Here.
And Mayor Kors.
Here.
All council is present.
We have one item on the agenda I would like to add, with council permission, at the end, opportunity for council member comments or future agenda items. So if there's no objection, we will add that. And City Attorney, do we have anything else, any urgency items to add to the agenda today?
Opening or from one stage to another, and because things are moving so rapidly, I think there is some urgency to adding this item before the next regular meeting, which is June 11th. And so, based on that, staff would recommend that the council agendize a discussion of the moving of phases and stages within the reopening and how that impacts our local economy, so that the council can discuss that and properly give direction to staff.
Okay, thank you. With that, those additions, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve. I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Garner, second Mayor Pro Tem Holstedge.
Councilmember Garner.
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Woods.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Holstedge.
Yes.
And Mayor Kors.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The first item is an unfinished business, 1A. Continued discussion of potential general fund budget impacts associated with novel coronavirus, COVID-19, fiscal year 2019-2020 adjusted budget, and fiscal year 2020-21 preliminary budget review. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. So we're continuing the discussion on the budget, and I think we've made some significant progress. And I would just like to just note for the Council that with us are the department heads. A few are in the chambers here. If you have questions, others are joining us by Zoom, so we can answer any of your questions. But I did want to take a moment, and we're at the end of a process that has been beyond challenging for us, and I'd like to thank all the department heads because they all had to really go through their budgets and come to the table with solutions, creative ideas of how we can deal with this budget. And as part of that, I'd like to thank our labor unions because our bargaining units, and as we'll talk about, they have come to the table with some ideas and creative solutions. That being said, Nancy Pauly, our finance director, Marcus Fuller, assistant city manager, and Perry Madison, our personnel director, they've been especially focused in working closely with everyone to get us to where we are. So I'd just like to thank them and just let you know that your team has been fully engaged, and I think we're going to be able to move forward with the budget. That being said, as a matter of process, I think I'd just like to lay this out for everyone. So presuming if council gives us direction today on the final budget, and we'll get into those details in a moment, we have two opportunities. What we will do is then we will bring back a draft budget. It will be on your agenda for June 11th. And at that point, if council will have an opportunity to give us any final comments, and then that budget then will be posted for 10 days as required before the meeting on the 25th, which will be the public hearing, and at that meeting is when we would ask council to approve the budget before the new fiscal year starts on July the 1st. So that is the process. Now, Mayor and council members, to continue where we left off, there's one specific area that we wanted to report to you. As you recall, we were dealing with a rolling budget. Now, this rolling budget had a scenario of personnel savings that included freezing positions, an early leave program, and a scenario of laid off positions, which was approximately 48. One of the things that council had asked us to do was continue discussions with our labor bargaining units. I would note that in this new fiscal year, the third year of the contract, for several of our units, the general units, which is now, they're called PEEPs, the Public Employees Unit, also our management unit, MAPS, and also fire and fire management. I would just note the police unions, they will be in negotiations for a new contract. That being said, those other groups had a COLA, cost of living, agreement of approximately be about $1.4 million that they were all entitled to on a COLA, and that would take place July the 1st. What they have agreed to do is to defer that payment for a year, which will obviously give us some relief on our budget expenditures for next year. And so what we were able to do is then, with that $1.4 million, reduce the number of layoffs from the 48 down to about 30 with that value. And what we were able to do is bring back specific positions that we believe were important to City Council in terms of the library, community centers, and the swim center, and Parks and Recreation. And so what we're recommending now is that we have a layoff universe of approximately 30 positions instead of the 48. That will allow us to continue additional operations and programs at our community center, swim center, library, close to where we were before we started this process. That being said, we did have discussions with the Budget Subcommittee, which is the mayor and member Middleton. They are in agreement with the proposal that we have on the table today. And the only other final thing that I would note, the change is with regard to economic development, the CVEP, which is the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, and the iHub, which is our incubator, employment incubator, they are scheduled to be reduced and cut the 325. Based on the importance of getting our economy back forward, what I was recommending to staff, also agreed to by the Budget Subcommittee, was to at least fund them for 6 months so we have that ability to continue planning for a post-COVID economy. We believe that that's very important, so that would be putting approximately $162,000 back into our budget for the new fiscal year. So Mayor, those are the changes that we needed to bring to you today, and everything else in the budget that we've discussed over the last few meetings remains the same. So again, all the department heads are here to answer any specific questions. Thank you.
Great. First, thank you and your team for all your work on this, and really thank you to our bargaining units for essentially taking a wage freeze when they're contractually entitled to the cost of living in order for us to maintain important programs and services for our residents. We really appreciate all of that. Just want to ask you a couple of questions, and then Councilmember Middleton is the other budget liaison, but we've gone through this a little together on this. And so one of the things is there also the key personnel, both the fire chief and police chief. I know there are 3 positions, and 2 in police, 1 in fire. Those are their priority positions to keep on the list. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor. And I would note with regard to police, just I would note one other thing, what you mentioned it, even though they are not participating in the COLA deferral because they don't have that in their contract this year, we understand that they are looking for a creative way to get back to the council with some potential savings on their unit as well.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Middleton, did you want to?
I want to second your thoughts and my appreciation to Dr. Reddy, to Nancy Pauling, Marcus Fuller for their work, for all of the department heads who have just put in an enormous number of hours to get us to this point. But we would not be here except for the cooperation that we are receiving from the Public Employees Association of Palm Springs, the Professional Firefighters of Palm Springs, the Palm Springs Police Officers Association, and our management group. Each and every one of them, in addition to the police and fire management organizations, have truly been partners working with us to get us to this point today. The last thing I would say is we had an opportunity to hear from some of the department managers. We've received written reports from every one of the department managers. And as someone who's been around public service for 5 decades, the thing that I always fear whenever there are budget cuts is that we're going to have someone calling for an across-the-board cut. Everybody take 5% or 10% or whatever it may be. We didn't do that here. We went through department by department and made really difficult, hard decisions based on what were the needs of each one of these departments. And none of this is easy. None of it is something we want to do. But we, in addition to everything else that makes Palm Springs a special place, the staff and the people who work here are incredibly special.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
Mayor, is this just generally about what's proposed?
About the budget, yeah. That's
Okay.
this item.
Okay, I just didn't know if you were trying to compartmentalize anything.
No.
Okay, I just want to thank staff as well for everything they've done to bring forth this budget, and all of the different staff members and organizations that participated in this process. It really was wonderful to see how much people were working together during this time to make sure that we do what we can for everyone. I'm really happy to see more funding for our library and our community centers. I think right now those, they really are essential. They're vital for our community. I know that my family would not have been able to stay in Palm Springs if it weren't for those resources. They were critical for me growing up here, and I know that they are for so many people in the community. So I'm looking forward to that, and I do hope that we can adjust as needed, because I know there will be some reductions in hours and things, and I think the community really dictates what those are. So if we can just be in close contact with them, and if a certain day of the week makes more sense than another, then that should be accounted for. It doesn't have to be the same schedule as when we start to open. But thank you just again to all of our residents as well for chiming in and letting us know what you thought about the budget and what's important to you. Those types of comments make our job a lot easier when we know what you want, instead of just trying to guess or decide based on what's important to us, which doesn't always match up with what's important to all of you out there. So I appreciate that. And another thing with the library, just for anybody who hasn't heard yet, the library is open for pickup. So you can call or reserve online, and then the library will bring books out to you. I did that yesterday, and it was really easy process. So thank you to the library for stepping up and making sure that our residents gain services. And just one more thing about the community centers. One of the things that in Palm Springs Unified School District, when school ed stopped because of the pandemic, they passed out hotspots to all of the students who didn't have access to internet. And they passed out thousands in Palm Springs Unified, and a lot of those were here in Palm Springs too. So when we're talking about libraries and community centers, you have to realize that there's still a lot of people in Palm Springs who don't have access to things that many of us probably take for granted, like internet access and Wi-Fi. So that's what makes it even more critical that we fund these spaces to make sure that people have these items, so that things can go better for them in the long run and they can stay residents of Palm Springs. So thank you very much to staff for figuring out how we could make this happen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Everything's been said. I think everything's been said. Thank you so much to everyone for their work on, and I agree with all the comments so far.
Great, thank you. I do want to, one more thing to say, which is I really want to thank the rest of the council. I mean, this has been a long, hard effort for all of us. And although we haven't always agreed on the best path forward, we just took the time, extra meetings, to just continue to listen to each other respectfully and hear the concerns each of us is hearing from residents, which are not always the same, and hear each other's point of view. And especially with 2 new council members who aren't even part of this budget, I really just want to say how impressed I am with working with everyone and how much I appreciate everyone's hard work to get us to this point on the council level, in addition to staff and our bargaining units. And it really goes to what we've all been saying. You know, this is going to be hard. It's going to continue to be hard, but we will get through this together because we're a city that comes together to get things done. So I just want to thank each of you as the longest term person at 4.5 years, but really for stepping up in such a major way. So thank you for that as well. So with that, I think we need a motion. Was that a motion from Councilmember Middleton? I think so.
I'll second.
And a second from Councilmember Garner.
Councilmember Middleton. Aye. Councilmember Garner.
Aye.
Councilmember Woods. You're muted.
I need clarification on what we're voting for, and I'm a little unclear. Somebody just said we made a motion, but I'm not sure to do what.
We were adopting the proposal from staff in scenario A with the new additional staff that we're adding.
As the entire budget? Because we've had no time to comment before voting.
So what this would do, and maybe I can help to clarify, basically you just be giving me direction to, I would bring back a budget based on the rolling budget concept with scenario A minus the additional reductions for the COLA. So those will be incorporated into a draft budget. And unless there's other direction, we will also put in back half of the CVEP and iHub. So then what we will do is we will bring that back as a draft budget for the next council meeting. And at that point, then it will be an agendized discussion. And then the public hearing will follow the following week. So right now, this is just council giving me general direction to finalize a draft budget with the rolling budget concept, scenario A, minus the COLA reductions.
Can I ask one question? Oh, sorry.
Just to be clear, scenario A is merging the two reserves into one reserve at 18%.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. And as the city attorney explained, I mean, we should still account. I mean, that's pretty much a reduction of about $2 million in the CalPERS reserve, which is a 4/5 vote. So we need 4/5 vote for that. And no general fund reserve. But for accounting purposes, they're combined because you need to have a 10% cumulative reserve minimal on the bonds. So however you want to note that in the budget when you bring it back, I think, so we're clear on that, David. I did have a question though, David. Since we already had, this is a revision of the adopted budget for next year, because we did a 2-year budget. So is that still the process to revise the budget?
It is just because, Mayor, as you recall, the little procedural thing is we sort of did the 2-year as sort of a pilot. The ordinance still is on the old budget system, so just to make sure we're in compliance with everything, we will have a public hearing before the final before this budget it goes into the new fiscal year.
Mayor Pro Tem Holstage. Oh, Councilmember Woods, you're in the middle. I think. Sorry.
Go ahead, Councilmember Holstage, Member Pro Tem.
Either way, you can finish. I got a clarification whenever you're done.
I want to thank all the players, I think, that had been said, thanking all the players that came to the table, including our employees that came to the table to sit with us to try and get to a point. I just really want to make the point that we are not out of the woods. We have spent almost $6.5 million more than we had for the month of May, as estimated, more than the month of May than we brought in. $6.5 million deficit in May alone. That is a lot of money. We're going to go into June with a similar deficit, and I'm not clear. I want a little clarification on what the new budget means going forward on that kind of bleed on a monthly basis.
So, Councilman, I'll start that answer generally, and the Finance Director may want to add some additional information. So based on the calculations that we have going out for the full 12 months of the year, we were looking at roughly that $47 million deficit, which includes the loss of our revenues from the tax receipts and other kinds of fees we were collecting. That was that middle ground, the middle range. So what this budget reflects is a universe of savings, personnel, non-personnel, that by the end of that fiscal year, we will match what that revenue is if that revenue holds, and it will still give us that approximately $20 million fund reserve balance. Now, again, each month as we move through this process, whenever we see that those revenues aren't matching up to what our expectations are, or our expenditures are higher, that's the concept of the rolling budget. We will make changes. So there may very well be additional reductions as we move through the year to make sure we hit that target at the end.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Holstage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, too, about the non-personnel savings. So I know this council had given direction and talked about items like economic development, and I heard you address CVAP, and I saw that earlier, and I think we talked about tourism as well. But I just wanted to clarify. So the motion to adopt to give direction to bring forward a budget based on all of this direction and the staff recommendation. Does that include all of the non-personnel areas of savings that are outlined in the staff report?
That is correct. So that would be approximately that $7.5 to $8 million worth of savings.
Okay, thank you. So I think that we've addressed all of those. We haven't gone item by item as a council. And I think I agree with nearly all of them. And I think the CVAP is a good thing to continue and to reduce. So hopefully other cities join us in fully funding CVAP because it is a regional effort. I just wanted to flag the economic development and tourism items to make sure that those have a cost benefit analysis, that we definitely should cut those and they're not going to make us money in the medium or long term.
Sure. And if I can just, since I work with the city manager on some of this, so on the tourism, and we reached out to the tourism organizations, because initially it was going to be double that. And they're fine with that. There's going to be none of the international travel shows are happening. There are a lot of savings we can get there. It doesn't impact the $800,000 of marketing money. So they all felt comfortable with that. As far as economic development, what we talked about is there still is need in the city for there. That department's taking a bigger hit because there are more open positions. And for the city manager to continue to do outreach to get applicants. And if he finds a position he wants filled, to bring it back to us at that time. And then we can consider it. So that's what the idea was.
Thank you. That makes sense to me. So I just wanted to make sure we went on record getting some consensus on those items.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I'm excited about the rolling budget process. I agree with Councilmember Woods that we should be looking at the monthly revenue and monthly spending, as well as the monthly projections of what's actually happening in the tourism economy. We have to, talk about the future of Palm Springs and reopening safely in a way that protects our residents and our whole community. But I'm really hopeful for the future of Palm Springs. I think it's very bright. I think that we'll be bigger and better than ever once this is over. And I think that there's a lot of demand based on the dozens of people who are asking me every day when they can come back to Palm Springs and the people who want to move here now from big cities. So I just want us to continue thinking, because I know we debated about the amount of reserve. And if we need 20 million in reserve at the end of this, depending on what it looks like. So we just have to temper the risk, but also think about the economic investments that we're going to make for the future of Palm Springs to ensure that we don't cut too much and that it is, bright and it'll be back on once the pandemic slows down. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mayor?
Yeah.
So that staff can get going on this, I think that the motion, the record should reflect that the motion includes the limited reduction in force that was presented to the City Council as part of this motion.
Okay, thank you. So we had a motion by Councilmember Middleton, seconded by Councilmember Garner.
Councilmember
Has everyone
Garner.
asked all the questions? Oh, okay.
Councilmember
Yes.
Garner. Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Woods.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Holstedge.
Yes.
Mayor Kors.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
So now we go to the urgency item. City Attorney, staff report, please.
Yes, Mayor and members of the City Council, as the Council will recall, at the last City Council meeting, the Council indicated a desire to true up the city's emergency order with regard to short-term lodging with that of the state. And indications at that time from the state were that short-term lodging for leisure or recreational purpose would be inconsistent with the governor's order. We've seen in the neighboring county of San Bernardino a different interpretation of that, and in San Bernardino County, the county has taken the approach that while hotels remain closed for leisure or vacation purposes, their short-term lodging, as they call it in that county, would be available for vacation or leisure purposes. We've received some indication that some county or some hotels here in Riverside County may be opening up in the next few days, and the city has been receiving a number of requests from hotels within the city to open up for vacation or leisure purposes. In addition, the city's vacation rental owners have been asking for similar requests. And so we just wanted to add this as a discussion item so that the City Council could discuss the current situation, the current interpretation of the state order, and see if the council wanted to give any direction to the city one way or another on that.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, I need to, if we're going to talk about vacation rentals, I need to recuse myself from the discussion.
Okay.
So Aaron, if you can put me in a special room.
One way we might want to deal with this is to deal with hotels first and have Councilmember Woods participate in that. And then depending on where that goes, if we have a continued discussion of vacation rentals, he may need to recuse.
Great. And then, so without mentioning some information on vacation rentals, at the governor's press conference today, he said pretty much the next phases are going to be up to each county to make those decisions. So this is very timely to think about direction we want to give, to reach out to the state and the county on this. The county will have to have met certain benchmarks, public health benchmarks, but once they do, the governor is giving leeway now to the counties to act and localities to act as well once the county has met those benchmarks. So we don't have those yet, but that's what I saw from the news headlines during our short break after closed session. So I did want to share that bit of information with everyone. With that, so comments, Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we're seeing, and the city attorney alluded to it, we've got a number of hotels that are frankly going rogue across the state, where they are admitting people into their hotel who are given a wink and a nod that they are there for an essential purpose as opposed to leisure. We've got hotels in some locations that are not requiring any kind of face covering or safety measures on the part of their guests. That's not the kind of opening that we want to have here in Palm Springs, and it's not the kind of business that our local hotels have told us that they are desiring to have. We have an incredible investment in our hotels here. 40% of all of the hotel rooms in the Coachella Valley are in Palm Springs. I think it's time for us to do everything that we can to ensure that our hotels and our vacation rentals can open responsibly, prudently, and do so in a fashion that protects the safety of their employees, the safety of their guests, and the safety of the people who live here in Palm Springs. That can be done. We are entering a new phase in which everyone needs to show their sense of personal responsibility. For some individuals with elevated risk, it's appropriate for them to continue to shelter and to limit their exposure, but that does not apply to everyone. So I want to see us get on record and push the county and push the state to allow our hotels and vacation rentals to responsibly and safely reopen, and do so as soon as possible.
Just as we discussed this, please don't mention vacation rentals, since Dennis can't be part of that, and we lost Councilmember Garner in the last minute. So, Aaron, can you see if you can get her back on? We'll wait for that.
We're working on that right now, Mayor.
Thank you. There we go. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so without talking about vacation rentals, just hotels. And I know the conversation is very similar, so we're still going to have it twice, but anyone else want to share anything? Councilmember Woods. Muted.
I think it's important to note that we have other, and as Councilmember Middleton stated, there are rogue organizations out there that are renting, likely illegally, but we need a better determination from the county about our hotels here. I think we don't want to run into a rogue situation here. I think we want to try and work with the county to open up our hotels in a safe manner. So I would be supportive of any sort of lobbying or legislation we want to do with the supervisor and or the state to try and open these hotels in a safe manner.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holstridge.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Middleton's suggestion and recommendation and the comments. This is really an issue of unfair competition because we're seeing other tourism destinations opening hotels, accepting bookings in a way that they're not following the state order, and it's illegal, frankly, and that puts our hoteliers and our businesses in an unfair place because they are following the rules and are following the governor's orders and the current laws. So I think that we should push for safe orders from the county and from the state to allow just consistency across all of these tourist destinations, across all of the cities. I think we'll just see more and more people, in non-compliance, and then that hurts our economy, it hurts our small business owners. And so obviously we believe in Palm Springs that our economy and public health, those are all one and the same. They're dependent on each other. It's not one or the other. We have to have both. So we have to reopen safely in a way that relies on public health data. I think we should continue to work with the county and the state on those issues.
Thank you. Any other comments on hotels? I'll just add that we know that it's been shared that there are hotels operating for leisure in the county. We heard from one in Palm Springs that wants to open on June 1st. And one of the things we heard from a lot of hotels, and I've been on calls with Supervisor Perez and Aftab Dada, who chairs PS Resorts, and Scott White, the head of the CVB, to really talk about their plan for safe reopening. And what we've seen in Palm Springs, where we were a hotspot, is the overwhelming number of residents and almost all our businesses have been following the rules and has kept our cases from spiking that we've seen in other places. And so the need to encourage an equal level playing field, but with safety precautions in place, is so important, because otherwise you start seeing businesses go rogue and they don't have the safety precautions in place. And then we're going to see the spike. So I really support doing this for the hotels. A lot of our small hotels and the safe reopening plan has different rules based on different size hotels. A lot of our small boutique hotels have nothing indoors, right? You go to your room outdoors once you check in. Everything is outside, which is even safer. So we really need to make sure we as a city, in addition to whatever the county's sending, share that in a resolution and letters to both the county and the state, and understand that this is going to be monitored, that we're going to make sure the rules are complied with and our residents and businesses want to open safely. And it's very clear in all of the data that has been done that whether it's retail or restaurants or lodging, the places that people think are safer are the ones that are going to have the most economically positive impact and the best impact on public health. Those two go hand in hand right now. So I think I definitely want to see that move forward as well. So let's just do this before I don't know that we need to vote separately on hotels and vacation rentals, City Attorney. We just give you nods on supporting on doing this for hotels, and then we'll have Councilmember Woods go to his room. Bad boy today. Send him to his room, and we'll talk about adding vacation rentals or not.
I don't think a formal motion is required.
Okay, thank you. So now without Councilmember Woods, I do want to share that about 5 minutes ago, the county started a press conference that they are allowing short-term vacation rentals throughout the county, effective immediately. They do have safety guidelines that they're posting on their website. So anyone who's thinking about a short-term vacation rental, and you have to have a permit in Palm Springs to do this legally, or you face very serious fines and permanent ban from ever doing it. So if someone's thinking about it, you need to contact the city vacation rental department on how to do it. But in Palm Springs, we still have the face covering and physical distancing rules, and it's important that anyone who comes here knows that. But I think we should include that with the state. The county has sent their proposals to the state saying that they're planning to do this, and from what I know, the state has not objected. So they are moving forward with this effective immediately. So I did want to share that, but I think we should include vacation rentals in what we're sending. And the county has also made clear they're not yet authorizing any other form of lodging but vacation rentals at this time, but I expect that may not be that far off if benchmarks are met the governor's setting for counties to make these decisions. So do we need a motion for you to draft a letter on our behalf or a resolution? What would be best, City Attorney?
I think we have direction.
Okay. Is everyone good? Thank you very much. We can let Dennis back. Welcome back.
I'm back.
So the last thing on our agenda is if there are any council member comments or requests. Councilmember Garner.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I wanted to discuss as far as the budget and priorities go. You know, now that we have something moving forward with the budget, I'd really like to see us spend some time determining what our priorities are once things do move forward and get better. I think it's really important for us during this time to look and see areas that will need to bring more staffing on as soon as possible versus areas that maybe are not needed, but just really focus and look, like Mayor Pro Tem said earlier, about the future of Palm Springs and what we're looking for and what we want for our city, and ways to make sure that events like this or any other kind of economic downturn doesn't affect us this drastically in the future. I'd really like to have those conversations, even if it's meetings that are just focused on that instead of particular council meetings. I think I've asked for that before, but it's I think even more pressing now. The other thing that I wanted to mention in light of everything that's going on in Minnesota is just really encourage everyone to do the hard work that anti-racism calls for. And we're seeing a lot of protesting and a lot of disturbing images. And I think it's really important as a community to reflect on that. And I also want to make sure that our community understands that even though Minnesota is far, these types of things happen all over the country, and Palm Springs is certainly not immune. I've discussed this many times before, but you know, in the 1950s, Palm Springs burned people out of their homes. This was Black and brown families that lived on Section 14, and that land, that's downtown land, and that land became more valuable to our city. And so we decided that the people that we didn't think were valuable should leave. And we forced them to leave by burning their homes. And there are members of our community who still live in Palm Springs who are still alive and remember living on that land and were forced onto the outskirts of our neighborhoods in our city. So these types of racial violence and actions happen all over, and they've happened here. And I think all of this coincided quite nicely with the library reopening. For anyone interested in books about anti-racism or just information on this type of work, there are a lot of resources at our library. I posted about some on my Facebook, and I really encourage people to do that. There's so much available to us, and it's necessary and needed. The other thing I want to just encourage is that we continue through the process of body cameras for our police officers. It helps all of us to make sure that we know what's going on in case anything were to happen or anything, whether it's something hopefully not as terrible as what we're seeing right now in Minnesota, but if there's ever any misunderstanding, it's important to be able to see that type of footage, but it also helps to keep people accountable. It holds the police more accountable for their actions. It holds residents accountable for their actions. And overall, it's a very good thing and something that members of our community have been asking for a long time. And we need to make sure that we're pushing forward in that process. So I just want to end by saying that I hope you all do the work. And for those of you who are hurting right now by all of the things that are occurring and that this really hits home for you, I hope that you are able to find some peace with family and friends and know that you have a council member who's advocating for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Other comments? or agenda items? Councilmember Middleton.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first, I want to thank Councilmember Garner for her comments and echo them. This is a responsibility that all of us have to heal our country and to do what is necessary to have these kinds of events not happen, and not happen in our community or any other community. Healing is not something that is easy, but it is something that is possible. I really want to thank Councilmember Garner for her leadership on this issue. As we get past this budget and this difficult process, one of the things that we need to come back and speak to is some of the issues that caused the crisis to be so much more profound in Palm Springs. As I noted earlier, we have 40% of all of the hotels in the Coachella Valley. I don't think any of us would have ever predicted that we would have an event occur in which no hotel could essentially be rented, and that we would go from an economy at full speed to full stop. We have talked in the past about diversification of our economic base, but we have now hit an experience that has told us that it is time to move past the conversation and start having some realistic proposals to expand our base and to ensure that the revenue streams that we have coming into our city coffers are less volatile than sales and transit occupancy tax. And to the extent that we are going to be continuing to rely on those two revenue streams, then we're going to have to develop a reserve practice that reflects the volatility of each one of those revenue streams. And we can't add back to reserves today, but we would not be in the position we're in today other than we had $49 million in reserves going into this crisis. And that really happened because the last city council before when the Councilmember Holstitch and I joined really started the effort to increase our reserves, and we've continued that. And I thank all of our predecessors for their work in getting the reserves to what we thought was a really robust number, and it proved to be a good number, but not an adequate number.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Woods.
I want to echo Councilmember Middleton on it is very important to have reserves, especially when when our source of revenue is limited. We have spent, we were in deficit for this year of $30 million. $30 million. And as Councilmember Middleton said, it's the ability of our predecessors to have put money into reserves that we're through this. But $30 million just to keep the government going, you could build a hotel for what that cost. And I think that's a huge number to have in consideration, and a huge number that we've been grappling with in dealing with balancing this budget moving forward. But I think it does say testament to the previous council members who had the foresight to put money in reserves. And it's highlighted here, as Councilmember Middleton said, when we are limited on the source of income that we have, basically related so much to TOT and so much to property and sales tax. So with that, I'll close. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? So couple things. So one is for our next agenda, and I think these can be on consent. One, I'd like to put on an anti-bullying policy for youth who access city services. I think we've all heard some stories about the importance of our city youth programs, especially for youth who have felt bullied, and how great our staff is at that. And I think it's something we should just have, despite having, I think, the strongest non-discrimination ordinance probably in the country. I think having the anti-bullying piece for youth just sends them a message that we're on top of this and we care about it. And I'm happy to send a sample to the city attorney. The other thing, although the state legislature is not doing a lot other than COVID these days, there is a measure, a constitutional amendment, potentially for the November ballot, to overturn Prop 209, which prohibited any affirmative action by the government. And I'd like to put on a resolution for us to officially support that and send it to our Assembly member and Senate and put that on the next agenda as well, if we could. The other thing I just want to touch on is, as we start seeing things reopen, including vacation rentals today in the county, which obviously includes Palm Springs, that we really all need to take the public safety and health measures very seriously so we can continue to have our economy reopened. You know, when this all started, and no one had any of these measures, no one wore face coverings, there was no plexiglass at stores, people were just mingling the way we always did and we love to, the numbers were just staggering in new infections. And so we're much better prepared now. Public health officials say we're better prepared now, but they're still concerned. And so we're going to have to learn how to coexist with COVID-19. We can't keep the economy and people's lives shut down indefinitely. And we're going to have to learn how to live with this as safely as possible. So I know this is hard for people who want everything reopened right now, and it's still going a little slower than they would like to make sure the numbers work and it could be done safely. And I know there are those who don't want anything open right now, and they are very worried about it. And somehow we have to figure out how to merge those two, because the public health impacts of the economy going into a depression, which would happen if things stay closed for another few months, would be just so unimaginable and painful for everyone. And this is very hard for everyone, but I think we're going in the right path, trying to do this thoughtfully and safely. And if people have questions, please call our hotline on the website, the COVID-19. There's a phone number. There's an email that people can use. We're continuing to update it regularly. And, Eisenhower still has a hotline. There's testing available everywhere. 4 of us got tested this week. And I'm pleased to say that it wasn't a nasal swab that into your brain that people so found uncomfortable. It was a swab in your throat. It really was like getting tested if you ever thought you'd have strep throat, but without a sore throat at the time. And it was, 10, 15 seconds. And so it's important people get tested because, before I go out to a restaurant, I want to know that I'm not asymptomatic and would put anyone else at risk. And so by getting tested, and sometimes they're advising if you're going to be out a lot to do it every couple of weeks. It's available in almost every city in the Coachella Valley now. There's no cost to it. That information is on our website, right at the lead of our COVID-19 page. So please look for that as well. Councilmember Garner.
Just a quick question, Mayor, maybe answer. Do you know if they're only doing the throat and no more of the nasal, or does it just depend?
I do not know. So what I suggested to people who feel strongly about not wanting the nasal is call the numbers to make your appointment and ask what kind of test they're doing. We all went to the site in India, which is a county testing facility, and most of these are, or few are not, hospitals or a Desert AIDS Project, but most of them are. But when you call to make your appointment, you can ask them what it is. And if you're more comfortable with one than the other, you can look to go to the one you're most comfortable with. City Attorney, anything else?
Yes, if I could report out of closed session, the City Council met earlier this afternoon in closed session to discuss the items that are listed on the agenda. The City Council discussed the litigation matters as well as the labor negotiations, and some labor negotiations were concluded, and so I'd like to report that briefly. The City Council and the following labor organizations concluded their discussions, resulting in a deferral of the annual COLA. The first is the Public Employees Association of Palm Springs, PEEPS. The second is Management Association of Palm Springs, MAPS, Palm Springs Firefighters Association, and Palm Springs Fire Management Association.
Thank you. City Manager, anything else?
No, Mayor, I think that finalizes our agenda for today.
Okay, so we will be adjourning, we believe, since we do add meetings as needed during this emergency, but we will be adjourning to our next regularly scheduled City Council meeting at 6 p.m. on Thursday, June 11th, and we will look forward to seeing everyone then. Thank you all for joining and for all the great public comment and all the emails we received. We very much appreciate it. Be safe, everyone. Take care.